Hi guys, Miss Wallace here. I just wanted to make a video to show you guys how to make three-dimensional geometric shapes. We're not talking about shapes like circles and squares that will help us draw, but we're actually talking about shapes that come out into our space. Things that are three-dimensional, like a 3D movie when you have to put those glasses on and everything seems to pop out at you. That's three-dimensional. So instead of it being a circle, we're going to be drawing what we would call a sphere, right? And instead of drawing a square, we're going to draw a cube. And instead of drawing a triangle, we're going to draw a cone. Instead of drawing a rectangle, we're going to draw a rectangular prism. And then we also have a cylinder shape that we could draw. So these are 3D shapes. So get a piece of paper and a pencil, and why don't you guys have fun drawing with me. Alright guys, so we're going to focus first on drawing our cube. A cube looks a lot like a square. The faces of a cube are a square. So guess what we're going to draw first? You guessed it, a square. Now I'm actually just using notebook paper. You can use any kind of paper and a pencil. And so I'm actually, when I draw my square, I'm going to use 2 lines of all my notebook paper here. Now when you're drawing, make sure it's a square, not a rectangle. Try to make nice, neat, straight lines. When you get done drawing your square, you're going to number the corners, or what we like to call in the art world and in the math world, vertices. Vertices is just a fancy word for corners. So we're going to number them. I'm also going to put a dot on all of the vertices. So I'm going to number this one 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Now, to continue my cube, I need to make another square. This square needs to be the same size as my first one. Okay? So that means it's going to have 2 lines going down and then the same length going across too, right? So I'm actually going to draw this square where it's going around the number 2 corner of my first square. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go down. There's my 1, 2 lines. And then I need to make this about the same length as this and this side, right? So probably right there. Go back up and connect. Now it's okay if it's not perfect. Just try your best. Remember guys, I always tell you your best is good enough. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing with this square where we go in, we find the vertices, make a little dot, and then we're going to number this square exactly the same way. So this would be my 1. Across from 1 I had put my 2 here. So it needs to be the same here. Down from 2 is 3. And the last one is 4. Now this is really fun, and this is where your shape kind of comes to life. You want to go in and you want to connect your 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, and 4 to 4. Try to use a very straight line. And make sure you're connecting the correct vertices. And now you have what we call the cube. Good job, everybody. Okay, next we're going to move on to the rectangular prism. We're going to move on to this one because it's drawn very similar the way a cube is drawn. So, with this one, what shape do you think we're going to start with? If you said rectangle, you're correct. And it's just like the square. We just need to make sure that it's not a square, that it's longer. So we're going to have a line here that goes down 2 lines on our notebook paper. And then I'm going to make this line long, and then the one above it the same length. And then I'll connect it on this side. So there's my first rectangle. Again, the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and number my vertices. All right. You want to guess what the next step is? We are going to draw a rectangle, another one. And remember, it needs to be the same size, and we want it to go around where the number 2 is. We want the number 2 to kind of be in the center of this rectangle. So I'm going to start here. I know that this is how long that rectangle needs to be, and I'm going to try to make this the same length. Sometimes if you're trying to figure out if it's the same length or not, you can always use your fingers if you want to and kind of measure it out that way so you can see. I might need to make it just a tad bit longer, okay? And then I'll connect it. And then remember, number those vertices. exactly the same way as you did the first one. And the fun part is connecting your 1s, your 2s, your 3s, and finally your 4s. And that is how you create a rectangular prism. Good job, guys. How'd you do? All right, kiddos, for the next one, we're going to kind of do something different. This one is going to be our cone. You might know this one really well because it does look like an ice cream cone, right? With the cone, you'll notice that the base is actually a circle, and then it kind of looks as if there's sides that come up to a point. We're actually not going to draw a circle. We're actually going to start with an oval, a real squished oval, and then we'll make it come to a point, almost like a triangle. All right? So when I start this one, I'm going to draw an oval shape, and it's kind of flattened, okay? And then I know an oval doesn't have sides. I know that because it keeps going and going like a circle. But I'm going to imagine that if it did have a side, it would be here and here. And I'm going to use diagonal lines, and it's almost going to look like the top of this part of a triangle or like a mountain. And they come to a point. Make sure they come to a point. And this, my friends, is how you draw the cone. A little bit easier than drawing the cube and rectangular prism. All right, the next one I have is the cylinder. And unfortunately, I didn't have like a wooden block, but I did have some slime that's in this cylinder container. That shape is what we're talking about. So it, like the cone, has circles on the base, okay, on both sides, and then it just kind of comes up from there. Okay, so when we draw that, we are going to start again with the oval, not a circle. And so I'm going to make my first oval at the top here. Now, we want to make the bottom oval be exactly the same size, okay? So that's going to be really important. So what I do to help me is I go ahead and draw the sides. I know an oval doesn't have sides, but remember, we're going to pretend. So I'm going to make a straight line down and a straight line down. So I know that this oval down here, it needs to touch these lines, okay? That way it's not bigger, or if it's not too small, it's just right. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to actually make a curved line here. So this is a part of my oval, and then it's going to come back around. Okay? It's not exactly like this one, but that's close enough. And so this is what we call our cylinder. Last one I'm going to show you how to do is probably the hardest one, and it is a sphere. I don't have a wooden block for this one either, but I do have a baseball. So a sphere is like a ball shape, okay? When we start drawing, we're actually going to draw a circle, okay? But it's what we do with that circle that makes it look like a sphere or a ball, okay? So on this one, I'm just going to start it over here off to the side, and I'm going to start with my circle. So try your best. I know sometimes circles can be hard to draw. Sometimes they look more like ovals. Just try your best, kiddos. Remember, your best is good enough. All right, so with our sphere, the way to make it look three-dimensional is to create what we call value. And those of y'all that were with me right before spring break, we talked about value. And value is the lightness or darkness of a color. So it's when a light hits a shape, and where you can see the light hit one side of it, but then create a shadow on the other side. All right? And then there's the in-between areas of gray that you might see because of where the light is hitting and not reaching that side of the sphere or that shape you're looking at. So when I draw my sphere, I'm first going to create a shadow. Shadows always touch the object, okay? They're always a part of it. So I'm actually going to draw almost like more like an oval shape, but it looks like an oval on this side, but it connects on this side. Remember, it touches. Now this is going to be the darkest value. Your shadow is the darkest value. So I'm going to color that in. try to stay inside the lines because that way it looks exact. Kind of looks just a little bit clearer, like our brain's understanding a little bit more about what's going on here, okay? If the light hits this way, we know the shadow's on the opposite side. I also know that if the light's hitting here, I don't need to do anything right here in this area because it is going to be really, really bright and it's going to look white. But I know as the light travels, it's going to get a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker as it wraps around. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to start with the back side. And I want this, when I use my pencil, it's like coloring with your pencil, but we call it shading. I want it to be dark, but not as dark as my shadow, okay? So I've got that. Now, I can't just go from this color to white. It goes and gradually gets to white. So what you do is you want to keep kind of shading, but pick up your pencil a little bit where it's lighter and gets lighter and lighter and then stop. Because remember, we need a little bit of an area that stays white, okay? So this is how you draw your sphere. Now, if you do want to go back to all of your shapes and create value, you can. So if you want, you can watch me. I'm going to shade in the rest of these three-dimensional shapes to make them look more like my sphere. I'm going to be using that value.